Welcome to Kidz Bop month. January of each year I do something related to Kidz Bop, my favorite music brand for underdeveloped children since Falling in Reverse. The last 2 years I've listened through the main series of 40 Kidz Bop albums, done tons of homework, and bought some merchandise. But this year it's going public. I'm uploading videos every day discussing something related to Kidz Bop. Tomorrow I'll begin with Kidz Bop 1, the classic. I'm doing this to raise $1,000 for St. Jude Children's Hospital by February 1st. I'm selling about 300 of my favorite CDs on Discogs at discogs.com/seller/icystorm9 to raise money, or you can donate directly at stjude.org/donate. See y'all tomorrow. Kidz Bop is clearly a low-budget cover of some of the most dated pop songs of its time. The covers are cheaply made and some interesting trends occur. Kidz Bop has 30 tracks and a lot of them are actually somewhat old. This album came out in October 2001, but Mbop was big in 1997. Believe by Cher was the biggest hit of 1999, and My Love Is Your Love came out in 1998. Meanwhile, big hits from 2000 like Breathe, Smooth, Everything You Want, and Hanging by a Moment are oddly missing. So basically, Kidz Bop 1 is catching up from the last few years. These songs are certainly odd picks. And with Kidz Bop having kids act out the skits on Oops I Did It Again and Steal My Sunshine, it's a bizarre listen. Kidz Bop is an important time capsule as the beginning of a huge media giant, but not much more than that. The first 5 Kidz Bop albums are surprisingly obscure and complicated because each has 2 versions. The most common version of each is the one-disc version, which was available in stores like Target. They have 18 tracks each, but the commonly accepted official versions of these albums are the 30-track versions that were shipped on 2 discs and available from Music Space Kids or the phone number in the commercials. We lose some good songs in the cut from 30 tracks to 18. For example, in Kidz Bop 1 we lose Crush, Waiting for Tonight, and Amazed, but we keep Steal My Sunshine and Summer Girls even though those songs are terrible. What were they thinking? It's interesting listening to old Kidz Bops because of how Kidz Bop sees the legacy of pop music. That is, they don't think about it at all. Kidz Bop doesn't seek to pick the most important songs of the last 6 months, it picks the most popular songs, and that's it. Things like Now Music are used as a tool to promote Sony and UMG and aren't really representative of the general public's interests because they're filled with songs nobody's ever heard of. But Kidz Bop is to this day owned by Concord and has no ties to Sony or UMG, it just seeks to play the hits. The Billboard Hot 100 can be a helpful tool to recap what people listen to, but its system is rife with abuse and doesn't necessarily reflect what's popular. Sure, if it's too explicit or adult, Kidz Bop won't touch it, but Kidz Bop is like a time capsule, and in my opinion, it's one of the best we have. Is Kidz Bop's official release date real? So we all know that the early Kidz Bop albums have 2 separate versions, the regular 2-disc version and the shorter 1-disc store version. So when we discuss the first 5 Kidz Bops, it's helpful to clarify whether we mean the regular edition or the store edition. The official release date for Kidz Bop 1 is the 9th of October 2001. Is the 9th of October release date for the earlier regular release or the more popular store release? You'd think it's the initial release, right? But on the 2-disc version, the copyright date says 2000. Furthermore, the trailer for these early Kidz Bop albums say they're not available in stores. The biggest clue is that when the 20th birthday edition was released in 2021, which celebrated the 9th of October release date, the tracklist is based on the store edition. I'm led to believe that the original Kidz Bop wasn't actually released on the popular 9th of October 2001 release date. But when was it released? Did Kidz Bop actually censor anything? Everyone knows Kidz Bop for the preposterous censorship they apply to songs, but it doesn't seem they did that on the first Kidz Bop. Razor and Ty marketed Kidz Bop as a safe alternative to radio pop, but they didn't censor this word in What a Girl Wants nor the nudity and death in Livin' La Vida Loca. Changes on Kidz Bop 1 are really rare, and the few that appear seem to derive from the singer not knowing the words or refusing to do a second take. It just goes to show how low budget Kidz Bop 1 was when they didn't bother looking up the second line to all the small things. The only change I found that might count as censorship was cutting the sleeping together out of Slide, and even then I'm not so sure because they kept the line about sleeping together in during My Love Is Your Love. Kidz Bop didn't make any meaningful changes. Razor and Ty wanted you to pay $25 for low-budget covers of pop songs you could hear on the radio for free, and their gimmick was false the whole time. Kidz Bop 2 has a lot of great songs, but it's clear Kidz Bop was still finding their footing. Catching up on all the great stuff from 2000 to 2002 that was missed in Kidz Bop 1, we get covers of Smooth, Turn Off the Light, You'll Remind Me, Everything You Want, and The Goat Hanging by a Moment by Lifehouse. But it still sounds low budget and even rushed. For example, on Hanging by a Moment, the organ is just straight up the wrong chords. The worst case is in I'm Real, where the Ja Rule impersonator doesn't even rap the Ja Rule verse. He raps the words, but not on rhythm, almost as if he's never actually heard the song before. And the kids only sing 2 words, and they're I'm Real. The best sounding songs are the ones that sound synthetic to begin with, like the smooth but dated You Remind Me, or the schizo-robotic noises of He Loves You Not. But despite the successes, Kidz Bop still had a long way to go before they made anything good. Kidz Bop 2 has exclusive tracks no matter which version you buy. If you buy the 2-disc version, you're going to get its 30 bass tracks. If you get the 1-disc version, you'd think you'd get the 18 best tracks from the 2-disc version, right? In reality, there are only 16 tracks carried over from the full 2-disc version. The 1-disc store edition includes covers of Pink's Get the Party Started and Kylie Minogue's Can't Get You Out of My Head, but neither of these songs are on the full version of Kidz Bop 2. So if you want the full Kidz Bop 2 experience, you need to buy both versions. With the full version costing $30 and the store version costing $13.99, Kidz Bop 2 is a very pricey listen. Kidz Bop 3 is edgy and communist. With how extreme the censorship is on later Kidz Bop records, it's shocking that they didn't change the opening line to Sheryl Crow's Soak Up the Sun. Kidz Bop 3 is surprisingly heavy in places, covering Alive by P.O.D., Hero by Chad Kroeger, and In the End by Linkin Park. This time around, the song sounds somewhat better. Choosing NSYNC's Girlfriend is a brilliant choice because the song already sounds like the Neptunes were working with a broken keyboard and a pie tin for a drum kit. The guitars and drums sound more dynamic and clear than on Kidz Bop 2. So even though it still sounds pretty rusty compared to the original songs, Kidz Bop is making notable improvements to their sound. Kidz Bop 4 dropped the ball. To give them credit, I'd genuinely rather listen to the Kidz Bop version of I'd Do Anything than the original, just so I don't have to listen to Pierre Bouvier's annoying voice. But I can't pretend the guitar work doesn't make it sound goofier than when the Fall Fair was last in town. This cover of Bring Me to Life is terrible. Piano isn't even close to the original, drums sound clinky, and their male vocalist straight up cannot do the voice. He's just whispering on the bridge. Nothing is mixed right. Jenny from the Block is especially bad. Every element is too loud and it sounds like being strapped to the target at a knife throwing competition. The wiki says that this was the first Kidz Bop album made in New York. The wiki is notoriously wrong, but if true, they must have left their talent in Nashville. Kidz Bop 4 is a wreck. Kidz Bop 5 is surprisingly obscure. Physically, this is easily the hardest to find of the original 2-disc Kidz Bops. But besides physical rarity, what is this track list? Someday by Nickelback, Have a Little Faith in Me by Mandy Moore, Bright Lights by Matchbox 20, Dig It from the Holes soundtrack. Was pop music so dead and unimportant in late 2003 that this is what they could scrape together? You know it's bad when one of the most memorable songs is Invisible, Clay Aiken's Stalker anthem, which peaked at number 37 on Billboard. I-5's Cinderella is a wonderful pop song with a memorable melody and strong vocal performances, and the Cheetah Girls cover was big at the time. But strangely, the Kidz Bop version is based on the version by Swedish girl group Play, which is the least relevant version of this song in English. All of Kidz Bop 5 is about as relevant. The machine had run out. 2-disc Kidz Bops were no longer good business. They didn't have enough songs to cover. I can see why this was the last one. Kidz Bop 6 is an interesting middle ground between early Kidz Bop from 1 to 5 and a second era which runs from 7 to 12. Like the earlier era, Kidz Bop 6 has the 3D logo, the commercial has the old narrator, and the album was available on cassette. But like the second era, there is only one version of Kidz Bop 6 with no 2-disc version to speak of. 6 is where Kidz Bop starts to sound like they know how microphones work, and the songs chosen are actually good. This Love sounds alright uncensored. Meant to Live does heavy a lot more accurately than the new metal tracks on Kidz Bop 3. My Immortal being just bad and not atrocious shows that they learned from past failures. They even covered Burn by Usher. Most importantly, Come Clean is my favorite song of all time, and it's a shame they cluttered it up with an echo that strips away the track's essential breathing room. With only 15 new songs, Kidz Bop 6 feels sparse, but it's a step in the right direction. Kidz Bop sometimes remixes old songs for new Kidz Bops. These days it seems like every old Kidz Bop song has been redone for Kidz Bop 90s Pop or Kidz Bop All-Time Greatest Hits or other compilations. There are a lot of them, but it was rare back in the aughts. So when Kidz Bop 6 had dance mixes of 3 older songs, I have to admit it was kind of cool. Skater Boy, All-Star, and Beautiful were definitely intriguing choices for the dance mix treatment. I like how Skater Boy sounds like alien bumper cars in a PS2 shovelware game, but Beautiful sounds like it's tripping over itself. All-Star is fine, but it sounds like Volcano backwards. All-Star was remade for Kidz Bop Greatest Hits, so there were 3 versions of All-Star before the early era of Kidz Bop ended in 2009. All-Star is on at least 6 Kidz Bop releases off the top of my head, making it the most popular Kidz Bop song to date. I can't think of another song I'd rather have in that spot. Are these Kidz Bop cassettes lost to time? If you watch the commercials for Kidz Bop albums through 2004, they were all advertised as available on CD or cassette. But after scouring the internet, I can only find evidence for the tapes of Kidz Bop 1 and its supplement More Kidz Bop. In the trailers for 1 and 4, the tapes look realistic, but in 5 it's a flat JPEG. And the Kidz Bop 2 and 3 tapes are just the CD cover stretched vertically. The Kidz Bop 6 trailer doesn't even bother showing a cassette tape at all. It trusts that you can read, which is funny considering their target demographic. The tapes were available for so many entries after More Kidz Bop with no evidence they sold any copies. I wonder how it was even worth their dime. Are the tapes even real? What do you think? Kidz Bop 7 is where the Kidz Bop series starts to get good. Pieces of Me, Breakaway, My Happy Ending, Leave, On the Way Down, Accidentally in Love, and My Boo. This is a stacked track list. Granted, a lot of that is based on how good the radio was at this time. And there are some L's here, like 1985 and Welcome to My Life. I hate pop punk so much. Kidz Bop still is Kidz Bop, but I have to commend the singer on She Will Be Loved for having a better voice than Adam Levine, coming from a Songs About Jane fan. At this point, Kidz Bop had stopped being low-budget, overpriced mishmashes. Craig and Cliff had learned some actual production skills, and it shows. None of these are gonna blow you away, but they sound alright. I love the splatter theme on the packaging. Kidz Bop 7 is the best Kidz Bop to date. These are good songs from a good era of pop music. Kidz Bop 8 is actually the first album I ever heard. That said, I'm probably biased towards it, but I like Kidz Bop 8 a lot. The album features a lot of songs that are hard to get the specifics right on, and I don't want to say that Kidz Bop nailed it, but they managed to carry the energy. I'm impressed with this cover of Take Me Out by Franz Ferdinand. Caught Up is hard to do with kids, but they managed. This version is actually how I got into Usher when I was a kid. This cover of Karma by Alicia Keys has surprisingly good vocals, as does Lonely No More. The drums in One Thing sound like real drums. On Kidz Bop 4, they would be clunky and unlistenable, but here they sound pretty normal. Somehow the crew got their act together over 2 years, and the end is a pleasant surprise. The first album I ever heard was Kidz Bop 8. I'd gotten into Kidz Bop through their McDonald's promotion, where kids would receive one of 8 Kidz Bop sampler CDs in their McDonald's Happy Meals from April through May of 2009. That summer, I listened to tons of Kidz Bop songs on YouTube. They were thrilling. Pop songs sung by kids for kids. I'm a kid. One day I convinced my grandparents to take me to the brand new Robert Trail Library in Rosemount, and I got all the Kidz Bops they had. Kidz Bop 8 and Kidz Bop Halloween. This was in August, mind you. I listened to Kidz Bop 8 and the rest was history. Now I'm making YouTube videos about it 15 years later. Funny how that works out. Kidz Bop 9 is profane. There's a line in We Belong Together that I'm actually going to censor for my channel, but Kidz Bop didn't censor it. That's an instance of profane language, but Kidz Bop 9 has profane noise too. I honestly don't think the end of We Belong Together is as bad as everyone says, but this feel-good ink cover is pretty unlistenable. And then the album ends with a cover of the Crazy Frog song Axel F, performed by the Kidz Bop Kids. Yeah, this album has some missteps. At the same time, there are always some surprisingly decent parts in all Kidz Bops of this era. The drums sound solid on Boyfriend, and speed of sound is shockingly dynamic. Maybe I'm just so used to Kidz Bop 1 to 5, so I wasn't expecting it. But these are competent recordings. Kidz Bop 9 may not be great. It has some blunders. But for what it is, it mostly succeeds. Does anyone remember Kidz Bop's animal mascot from 2006? His name is Lucas, and he's pretty important. He appears on the cover of Kidz Bop 9, and the included comic features him as the main character. The comic is nonsense and would never receive a follow-up issue. He plays an important role in the Kidz Bop Comic Adventures Flash cartoon. According to lore, the Kidz Bop kids wouldn't even be together if it weren't for him. He was really important at this time, but as far as I can tell, Lucas's time in the spotlight began and ended with the Kidz Bop 9 album cycle. He cameoed in the Kidz Bop 10 commercial, and he hasn't been seen since. Rest in peace, Lucas. I'll miss you forever. Kidz Kidz Bop 10 is strange. I think Razor and Ty got letters that the kids aren't involved enough because now they're shoehorned in. They cheer after every line on Bad Day, and it comes off in a similar way to Logic's Who Can Relate on 1-800. And in Move Along, they echo every line in the verses. They do the same on You're Beautiful. Songs need room to breathe, guys. Not every second needs to have vocals. On Pump It, I don't think they could manage to get the verses to sound good, so they have the kids doing the ad-libs over an open verse. They took out all 3 verses of Pump It, and I'm not sure what the point is of even including it anymore. Most confusing thing I've ever heard on a Kidz Bop record. You could tell the studio wanted to do more with the kids, but didn't know what exactly to do with them. So they threw them in wherever they could, like when you give your kid brother an easy task so he won't just be sitting around and causing trouble. Kidz Bop 11 is kinda cheeks. This cover of My Love isn't even close to accurate, has nothing to do with Timbaland's luscious beat from the original, and sounds like the desert from Scooby-Doo Alien Invaders. And they cut T.I.'s verse entirely. Half of these songs sound like the singer forgot to bring a microphone and had to use the built-in laptop mic like their King Giz, but it's inconsistent, and I don't remember Kidz Bop 7 through 10 having this problem. Lips of an Angel by Hinder is a crazy pick for Kidz Bop, and not just because it sucks. Chicken Noodle Soup doesn't work well either. They have the kids chorus saying every single line over the Plinky beat, so it sounds like you're getting yelled at for 3 minutes. Shout out Kidz Bop 11 for introducing me to Gnarls Barkley when I was 6, but as an adult, it's a rather weak installment at this point in the series. Kidz Bop 12 is awkward. The problems with 10 and 11 are still present on 12, but not enough to be upsetting. They're still messing up Timbaland beats on Say It Right, they're still cutting out the rap verse on Umbrella, vocals still have different mic quality across different songs, they're still changing man and woman to boy and girl, which they actually had been doing, but it's most noticeable when Old Man is changed to Old Boy on Cupid's Chokehold. But Kidz Bop 12 is a step up in a few ways. I like their Icebox cover, and their take on Girlfriend is a lot less annoying than the Avril Lavigne original produced by Dr. Luke. Far less severe migraine. I'll never get used to the radio edit, but this version of What Goes Around Comes Around is probably the most faithful Timbaland cover we have. Crazy that Timbaland's beats appear 3 times on this album. But Kidz Bop 12 isn't bad, just weird. Kidz Bop was in an awkward tween phase that it was soon to grow out of. So we all know the Maroon 5 hit song Makes Me Wonder. You may also know there's a Kidz Bop cover. But did you know about the Mini Pop Kids cover? Yeah, there's a Kidz Bop that's even lower budget. Mini Pop Kids is Canada's equivalent to Kidz Bop. Their first album dropped in 2004 and features a lot of songs Kidz Bop doesn't have, like Thorca and Where Is the Love. They had kids doing all vocals from the beginning, which Kidz Bop wouldn't do until 2009. I wonder if the ripoff actually inspired the original. Mini Pop Kids are still around, just put out an album a few weeks ago. And nowadays they're much better than Kidz Bop. Just goes to show that money can't buy taste. Kidz Bop 13 is cool. This one probably has the worst mic quality since Kidz Bop 6, but it's more consistent than the last few entries. 13 carries over the vibe of the songs a lot better than previous entries as well. Party Like a Rockstar by Kidz Bop is no Pokey Star by Titus Jones, but I still feel like a rock star listening to it, and it's performed by a bunch of middle schoolers. The choir of kids is still very present, but their inclusion feels a lot more tasteful and purposeful than it did on the last few albums. While we're here, I want to shout out Kirsten Price, who sings Who Knew and Big Girls Don't Cry. She's actually been around since Kidz Bop 5 and I always enjoy her singing. Her voice is soothing. I don't know who she is, but she's awesome. Kidz Bop 13 is pretty good, but there isn't much to write home about here. Just a better version of Kidz Bop 12 with some cool songs here and there. So everyone knows that Kidz Bop actually had adult vocalists until Kidz Bop 16 in 2009. But if you listen to Superstar on Kidz Bop 14, a kid does Lupe's verses. So what gives? Well, Kidz Bop had been experimenting with kids as lead vocalists earlier than Kidz Bop 16. A lot of songs on Kidz Bop 14 are done mostly by kids with little to no adult performer to speak of. Even more songs have kids on lead vocals on Kidz Bop 15. It seems that Kidz Bop was soft launching the child vocalist transition a year before they actually fully went there. That way they could reverse the decision if it weren't popular, just like they did after kids performed Steal My Sunshine on Kidz Bop 1. Mini Pop Kids had been doing it for years, so I'm surprised it took this long. I obviously like the adult vocalists a lot better, but this change makes a lot of sense from a business perspective. I mean, these are songs made by kids for kids. It only took 9 years, but now they're actually sung by kids. Kidz Bop 14 is surprisingly good. Never before has the chorus of kids been so prominent, but never before have they been utilized so well. Even when they're the entire song, like on Pocketful of Sunshine, it doesn't sound bad because they're actually singing decently. Even on Teardrops on My Guitar, the chorus doesn't sound great, but the song is adapted to fit their energy. The backing track has some more flair to make it feel bigger, almost big enough to deserve the choir of kids. And Sean Kingston is here too, the real one. The kids sound like they belong on the song with him, even though the original song talks about Killas getting hung. Never before has a Kidz Bop cover been so good that it's almost better than the actual song in every way. Kidz Bop 14 is almost the perfection of the Kidz Bop formula. Some of the songs without the adult vocalist could have used one, but the kids themselves are actually singing decently well here. Kidz Bop 7 will probably always be my favorite, but credit where it's due. Most people my age learned about Kidz Bop through the commercials that would air on Nickelodeon. These things were always an oddity to me. Every one features kids doing wacky stuff and singing Kidz Bop songs, like they're playing basketball, skipping rope, texting on Blackberries, playing the 7, leaning on a 7, 7 catching, flying with 7 wings. Sometimes there's a clever idea, but usually it's just, what do kids like doing? Now imagine they're singing Kidz Bop while doing it. These ads always included some add-on gimmick. Kidz Bop 5 comes with a little frisbee, Kidz Bop 6 with a set of stickers, Kidz Bop 7 with a tattoo pack, and Kidz Bop 14 comes with another Kidz Bop 14. Why would anyone need the same album twice? I think that's why Kidz Bop 16 and 17 came bundled with, other albums. It's fun to watch these, if only for nostalgia's sake. I hate advertising, but Kidz Bop commercials are pretty entertaining. Kidz Bop kids sometimes become celebrities. Did you know that Ross Lynch worked on Kidz Bop 15? And Becky G and Olivia Holt worked on 14? And here's Zendaya in the Hot and Cold video I used to watch dozens of times when I was young. This guy in the Kidz Bop 14 trailer is Noah Monk, who was already on iCarly, but he was only a minor role at this point. I don't think I recognized him as Gibby when I saw this ad on TV, although that was 16 years ago. Breedia Santoro, who is part of the third era of Kidz Bop according to the wiki, is in a new band called Lucia Jane that's pretty good. I love watching their concerts on YouTube, and I really wish they could come to Japan so I could see them in concert. They're not as popular, but I wanted to give them a shout out because they're awesome. Go check out Lucia Jane. Kidz Bop 15 is surprisingly violent. This was the last hurrah for the adult vocalists, but at this point the brand didn't need them anymore. Kidz Bop 15 is a crazy conclusion to the adult vocalist era of Kidz Bop. Starting with So What was a bold move. Didn't even take out the death threat, and they didn't change the word hate in 7 Things either. I guess 2009 was a different time and it was cool to hate back then. If the early Kidz Bop era had to end, I'm not mad that it ended with Kidz Bop 15. It takes all that Kidz Bop learned over the past 9 years and it showcased it well enough. No overly corny line changes, no awful mixing, no bizarre song picks. It's solid. Now the series is on to bigger and better things. Can't be mad at it for that. In April and May of 2009, Kidz Bop gave out CDs with McDonald's Happy Meals. There were 8 different CDs to collect. I had discs 1, 2, 4, 6, and 8. Each disc had 4 tracks from past Kidz Bops, including spin-offs like Kidz Bop Gold. It's weird to hear different Kidz Bops mixed together like this. It's so jarring because of how much better the mixing was after the first few years. But as a youngster, I never noticed a difference. The last track is always Kidz Bop World, the theme song of the Kidz Bop Flash cartoon. I used to think Brotherton was Lee Brotherton, who made Dreams of an Absolution for Sonic Next Gen, but it turned out to be Aaron Brotherton, who worked on Kidz Bop in the 2000s. These CDs are really easy to collect. A full set is available for $10 to $15 on eBay if you're interested. Just make sure you know what you're buying first. I haven't gotten to modern Kidz Bop yet, but I want to jump ahead to 2021 when Kidz Bop released a re-recording of Kidz Bop 1's Store Edition for its 20th anniversary. It's strange. It's both better and worse. I critique Kidz Bop 11 for vocal quality varying drastically between songs, but on this album it varies between lines. That's not a problem exclusive to this album, but it's such a different approach. Hearing What a Girl Wants sung by a different kid every line is bizarre, and half the time it's a boy too, so it doesn't make sense. One of these kids straight up cannot sing. He sounds AI generated with all these filters, but it's only him. I've ragged on Kidz Bop 1 for being cheap and not caring about getting the lyrics right, but now they do, and the lyric changes are strange. Further, the My Love Is Your Love cover is now the original version, but that don't impress me much is a dance remix, the old switcheroo. This CD is an oddity, but it's an oddity worth checking out. All proceeds from Kidz Bop Month go to St. Jude Children's Hospital. You can contribute using this donate link or my Discogs store.